Jo Swinson.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. As we have heard, on the same day that this order to proscribe the military wing of Hezbollah was published, the Prime Minister told the House that this was solely on the grounds of new evidence of its involvement in terrorism in Iraq and the occupied Palestinian territories. And, of course, we all utterly condemn the violence and the terrorist activities that are conducted by Hezbollah. And so, at the outset, I would like to say to the Minister that, from the Liberal Democrat point of view, we are in broad agreement with the Government's decision to bring forward this order to prescribe the military wing of Hezbollah. However, I would just like to pose a few questions to probe the Government's motivation in doing this and get a little bit more information so the House can come to a clear decision. It would be helpful, I think, to have more of an outline as to why this has come about now, what specific activities undertaken by Hezbollah have prompted this change in legislation. I do appreciate, as the Minister said, that there is a sensitive nature of this information, but I think for the House to have the maximum possible information would certainly be advisable. I'm not sure I quite caught the Minister right, and so I hope he'll be able to confirm and clarify. But he did say that some of the intelligence had been confirmed following the apprehension of a senior individual on the 20th of March 2007, I think is the date that he said. If that's the case, will he confirm that? And why has it taken much over a year for that actually to come to the stage of actually bringing an order before the House to prescribe the military wing? Is it just because the information was gleaned more recently from this individual, or indeed have there been other delays for some reason? On the same day that the order was announced, the Telegraph reported that some Iraqi MPs had accused Hezbollah of planning and supervising the kidnapping of 5 British citizens from the Iraqi Finance Ministry in Baghdad in May 2007. I just wondered whether the Minister had any reflections on the coincidence of these two events, whether or not they were indeed related. While activities of terrorist organisations of course must be condemned, I do think the Government cannot escape criticism entirely for its role in creating conditions where terrorism can thrive. Is it not the case that the activities of Hezbollah in Iraq stem in part from a fatal lack of planning for Iraq post-Saddam Hussein? Iraq has become a magnet for fundamentalists, and the implications of that failure of planning are still unfolding across the entire region. Just to turn also to the issue of definitions, which has been raised by several honourable and right honourable members already, I, for one, do welcome the Minister's assurance that the political, social and humanitarian activities will be unaffected. But I do think that this definition is going to prove very difficult, and I would welcome some clarification from the Minister as to how this would work in practice. Hezbollah is a highly opaque organisation. It can't even have bank accounts in its own name, so as a result its finances run through sister organisations, funnelling money to a central structure where it then reaches the military, political and other arms. Therefore, finding any conclusive proof that financial support given to Hezbollah from a UK donor has paid for arms rather than social projects is surely going to be an incredibly difficult exercise. Indeed, last week, a lawsuit was filed in the US District Court in Manhattan by Israeli victims of rocket attacks, seeking $100 million worth of damages from 5 Lebanese banks that they accuse of helping to fund Hezbollah during the 2006 war. Now, at that time, horrified by the pictures of the humanitarian problems on our screens, many people were giving donations for legitimate charitable purposes and relief efforts out of a genuine desire to help the people of Lebanon. So the case actually raises problems about how any institutions or individuals that provide financial backing to Hezbollah, how that would be dealt with under similar circumstances in the future. And contributors to genuine charitable causes should not be at risk of prosecution for supporting a terrorist organisation. So I'd welcome it if the Minister would be able to expand a bit further on how that definition issue will be resolved. I'll certainly give
grateful to the Honourable Lady, and she's quite right to address the issue of the consequences of prescription. No matter how bad this organisation is, there are others who support general causes, charitable causes, who are caught within the overall net of what is being proposed. And at the moment, does she agree with me, there is a lack of clarity generally on the issue of prescription and what other organisations, maybe not associated with this organisation, are involved with, but other people who might support the general cause of peace in the Middle East?
Well, the Right Honourable Gentleman obviously has a great deal of experience in these matters in his chairmanship of the Select Committee, and I'm making the very point indeed that greater clarity is in fact required, certainly about Hezbollah and the different parts, but also so that the innocent people are not caught out unfairly by this legislation, which I'm sure is not the government's intention, but therefore some clarification as to how the government proposes to get around those difficulties would certainly be welcome. And just to draw my remarks to a close, Madam Deputy Speaker, just another question was that under the existing Terrorism Act, my understanding is there have been no prosecutions of Hezbollah-connected militants in this country. Is this a sign that it's been so successful and therefore we shouldn't have had to worry too much about it? Or could the Minister say whether the previous definition was in fact proving to be unhelpfully narrow where securing prosecutions was concerned, and whether it's expected that this will give the government the extra tools that it needs to bring some people to justice who perhaps should have been previously? Have there been any Hezbollah supporters in this country that perhaps should have been prosecuted and we would have wanted to prosecute that have perhaps escaped as a result of the different definition? And finally, just to pick on one of the points that's been raised by other members, I think the international context of this would also be helpful. The views of our EU partners, the Honourable Member for Hendon listed various countries who had prescribed Hezbollah. Are we in step with our international partner countries on this issue, and are they similarly making changes to their terror lists, whether that's within an EU basis or indeed across countries across the UN? So I look forward to the Minister being able to address some of these points, but we'll give broad support to the order.